Today we're going to look through Echo Romieco's panel and go through every single switch and as it differs to Delta Charlie Whiskey. If you have not seen the other Hyperseneca video on Delta Charlie Whiskey, which goes more into depth on every single switch, go watch that. Otherwise, this one is going to focus on Echo Romieco and the differences that it has in relation to Delta Charlie Whiskey, which thankfully is really not that much. Starting with less sub-panel switches, your mags and primers and all that's still going to be the same. You don't have wingtip lights on this one, and so flick that on, and then your wingtip lights light up like such. That's not on Delta Whiskey. And then your nose landing lights is a split switch, so if you want just the left landing light like such, you do that. Your navigation lights still do the same thing, and they absolutely do dim the gear light when you flick that on, so we don't generally do that unless it's at night. Then your anti-collision light is another split switch. So right here you have, it says fin, and then this one says wing. So if I flick the fin on, we're talking the tail fin here, that'll turn on the beacon light on the tail. If I go wing, that is now your strobes, which you can see flashing up against the cockpit there. So generally, we just turn on fin for that beacon light unless we need our strobes. Keto heat and all that's all pretty much the same there, except we're missing the little knob for dimming lights. Still have the other knobs over here for dimming lights, however. Autopilot panel runs the same, looks almost the same, just in black instead. Albeit now we have our manifold pressure gauge, but we have completely removed the RPM gauges. So where did they go? Well, they're up over here. And yes, this is a little bit annoying. Only one of them has a light, yes, but they do work. You're generally not setting RPM too much during a flight, anyways, compared to manifold pressure. So that's where you'll find the RPM gauges. The six pack panel is kind of similar. You still have an airspeed indicator and a turn coordinator. Your vertical speed and your altimeter is all the same, but now we've replaced the middle part with an Aspen. And so we'll kind of power this up here, flick that on, and now we have a digital HSI, similar to our electric HSI in DCW, and an attitude indicator that's more glass cockpit oriented. And so it's got a standby airspeed indicator, a standby altimeter. It does pull off of the same pitot-static source as the other altimeters and airspeed indicators, but it's another instrument in there. And then as a result, now we have a backup attitude indicator over to the right that we could use. This one runs off of vacuum power in case we lost our electrics. We could still run off of an attitude indicator there. Glide slope coupler is right over here instead, and now we have a new stall warning light, and it also makes a very annoying buzzing sound when it goes off. Chronometer still there. All your top annunciator lights are still there, and then your avionics stack is a little bit different. So we have an Apollo MX-20 in here, and this is more of a backup display for basically a moving map is what we use it for. You can kind of look at messages, you could pull up the map, you could go IFR, VFR. Um, let's go clear out of here. There we go. So we can go over to map, and that gives us somewhat of a map, albeit there's no flight plan in there, so that won't really give us much. You could go to IFR map, and then that'll give you an IFR related map, or you could go to the VFR map, which you might use for VFR flying if you ended up in here. Generally, we just set it to the map settings, and then we kind of leave it there, and that'll be our moving display. It'll display our flight plan up there once there is a flight plan to display up there. Then below, Garmin G430, again, just like DCW, and it is WAS enabled, and so it can do all the same stuff. Go watch the Garmin G430 video on how to use that. Slightly older intercom panel. So we have our volume knob to the left. There is no way to adjust the squelch in this one. It's just volume. And same deal, marker beacon intensity, not applicable to anything we would be doing. And then you have crew isolation right here. So you could either isolate to just pilot all or the front, which would be crew. We keep it on all. Then you have, these are what you're listening to. And so right now we're listening COM1, this would be listening COM2 and so on. Nav, marker beacon doesn't apply. ADS might apply. Aux if you had like an aux port to plug into. DME and then speaker for the speaker above us. And then you have what you're talking on, so the transmit side of things. So you got COM1, COM2, COM3 isn't a thing in here, and then COM1 and 2 over here that you could adjust it to. Then below this is COM2, again, because COM1 is nested inside the G430 on the left-hand side there over here. So that's COM1, that's COM2, and it's a little bit more modern than the Bendix King from DCW, albeit only so much, so you can adjust your frequency there, uh, just like you could anything else, and you can switch it from COM to nav. Right now we're in COM. Your nav is hidden on the nav button, and so now we have all our nav frequencies over there, and such. So you can adjust it and change it like that. Your volume is over here. If you pull it back, it will squelch the unit, whatever you're listening to. And then we have a DME down here. So if I put 1117, which would be the ILS, it should give you a DME readout right there, and then an ADF right over here, which works the exact same way as the one in a DCW. Then a slightly more modern transponder, which you would just type in a code, and it just sets the code for you. You can squawk VFR with squawk 1200, and then you have your different modes: off, standby, alt, and on. You also have a little flight timer in here, so if you hit function, you can kind of cycle through, count up. You could start it for a hold, let's say, stop, and clear. That would be potentially useful for you in IFR. Moving to the right, or talked about the RPM gauges over here, and then you have an Aspen Master. Now, this Aspen Master is only for the Aspen unit, the Aspen Evolution right in the middle here. And so if I flick that switch off, that'll turn that off. It's separate to the avionics. Then you have a slightly older JPI, which gives you supplemental engine information, including fuel flow right there. It'll kind of just cycle through its stuff, and got EDT, CHT, and all that displayed there. Your ELT is moved to the right over here instead of the just below the left sub panel on DCW. You have the same breakers. All those gauges are the same. Your fuel flows down there, radio, lights. But your avionics master is located over here now. In DCW, it was up on right about here on the panel. Now it's a big switch over here. It's much easier in the area to find. Down here, we have an alternate static port. Now, if I flick this up like such, now I'm going off of alternate static air. Take that off, and now there's no longer any alternate static air. The rest of it is essentially the same throttle quadrant. You have your jump and bar flaps and column flaps. The parking brake works the same way. Don't press the lock button if you want to unlock the parking brake. And then all down through here, you have all the same heating equipment and whatnot. The heater, or correction, the cold air blower switch is a little knob now to adjust it, but it works the same way. And your OAT is up there, just like it is in DCW. Let's talk about the doors. So the doors have, instead of a full latch, it's kind of like a little pull handle, and that will unlock it. And so generally in here, I will pull to latch the door like such, and then I will pull this top latch up here to actually lock the door. If you take that latch off like that in flight, it'll start to pull the door out, and if you unlatch it, the door will start to come undone in flight, which is definitely not at all what you want. And that is ERE in a nutshell and the differences.